Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Hornets Daily, presented by Fan Arc, your one stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. I'm Vance Ballard, but as always, friends like you call me VB. Thanks for joining me today, and be sure to smash that subscribe button, leave a like, and a comment on the video. As I have mentioned in earlier videos, previous recordings, we'll be diving into the comment section, getting a little bit more in depth with what you guys think about what we're talking about here on the show, and some thoughts about what you guys maybe want to talk about on the show. The plan is for later on this week or early next week to begin diving into that comment section, dipping some toes into what you guys want to talk about or your opinions on what we've already talked about. We've got a fun Monday show in store for you today with plenty to talk about from the weekend. Some deals are official. The rumor mill has started to heat up and spit out some very interesting ideas. Colin Sexton got a feature. A big announcement regarding training camp in Charleston. And with just 4 days until we tip off, we break down the full Summer League schedule, and we'll continue looking into the players with the most to prove on the Summer League roster. Today we'll look at KJ Simpson. As I said, there's plenty to talk about today, so as we say here on Hornets Daily, no need to beat around the bush. Let's jump right into it. Last time we spoke, it was a holiday, a day of celebration. And as I've said, it feels like the Hornets have given a few reasons to celebrate this offseason as well. Now, with it being a holiday weekend, it wasn't exactly buzzing, but that doesn't mean it was dull either. There was plenty going on as the Pat Connaughton deal was made official, along with the free agent signings on Sunday. And again, just because they're signed doesn't mean they're all here to stay. I want to reiterate that, but the signings are official as of July the 6th. Now, that brings me to some other interesting things I saw this weekend. As we know, this part of the summer is a perfect time for the rumor mill to heat up and articles to fly all over the internet suggesting the one final move that may put a certain team over the top, or in some cases, the one final move that will help solidify a team move into full rebuild mode. Now, in regards to the former, Franco Luna of Behind the Buck Pass posted his thoughts this weekend on how Milwaukee could strengthen their roster in a trade with Charlotte. He cited the surplus of guards that we've mentioned several times on this show as a reason to pick up the phone and call down to Charlotte. Luna suggests that a trade for the recently signed Colin Sexton, just mentioned him in the preview of the show, with Kyle Kuzma and possibly a first round pick coming back to Charlotte. Now, I read this and I instantly did not like it. Then I sat on it for a second, let it mull for a minute, reread it, and still didn't like it. Now, yes, you can say the Hornets have too many guards and that they need size and scoring to go along with it, but I'm not certain that Kyle Kuzma is the answer to those problems. For everything we've heard the front office say this summer about changing the culture, intensity, competitiveness, it just feels like that even with the surplus of guards, Colin Sexton still fits that mold more than a Kyle Kuzma does. I take it, of course, with a grain of salt because it does seem it's hard to be an intensity guy in Washington. But what we've seen out of Kuzma in the recent years just doesn't seem to line up with what Jeff Peterson and Charles Lee have been preaching all summer. It's also been about fixing the offense all offseason. As we know, the only word to describe it was abysmal here offensively last season, and that fixing that has seemed to have been a theme and something that the front office and Charles Lee have made a priority this summer. And while, yes, Kuzma does have offensive talent and upside, he doesn't fix things quite the way Colin Sexton can in terms of creating his own shot, increasing the shooting percentage, and playmaking ability with the ball in his hand. Now, I did mention another type of team looking to move players at this time of year, and that's the team shifting into full rebuild mode. I'm talking specifically now about the Brooklyn Nets, a team that I personally have mentioned in the same breath as the Hornets in previous videos throughout this show. And the article I saw this weekend actually brings up a trade that I've thrown out here on Hornets Daily as well. Zach Roberts of Hornets SI posted an article on July 4th, actually, that reintroduced the possibility of the Hornets trading for Nick Claxton. Now, if you remember, you know this was something I was very high on when originally brought up earlier in the series, especially since Claxton is still only 26 years old and has already established himself as a defensive anchor in the league. Someone who can play in the paint, protect the rim, move out if the guy he's guarding moves out, and stay in front of him. He's just been a repetitive example of a good defender in the NBA, again, an anchor in the paint for a team. I like the idea of this trade more as well because I don't think it would cost nearly as much as what Colin Sexton would be offering to a team like Milwaukee if that hypothetical trade we were just talking about were to take place. The Nets, they're very clearly trying to rebuild at the moment. They just brought in 5 rookies from the draft, and Claxton doesn't really fit a rebuild mode at all. He's too much of a, for lack of a better term, try hard, which we know that's what we want here in Charlotte. But Claxton is an intensity guy. He brings that to each and every game that he plays in, and that's not exactly what Brooklyn is looking for right now. Not that their players aren't going to try, but Claxton is just a little bit too good to be the anchor of a rebuilding team. And so that would allow for Charlotte to make a move for not a crazy cost or an astronomical price to get Claxton. Moving him for one of the large amount of assets that Charlotte has acquired over the summer. We've listed those ad nauseum on this show. While being able to keep a Colin Sexton on the roster would be huge for the future. And again, not only would Claxton instantly make the defense better, he, as I mentioned, would fit the new culture perfectly here that Peterson and Lee seem to be reiterating and trying to build, as he would finally be playing in a place with a glimmer of hope and even a chance to become a playoff team, which would be again, for a cliche term, would be a great change of scenery here for Claxton. Get him out of what could feel like kind of a dungeon or a prison in Brooklyn, and maybe some new optimism would bring a new spark to his game as well. Someone, again, who's still right in the middle of his prime. Now, if it sounded during all of that like I have joined the Keep Colin Sexton movement, it's because I have, and I feel like the Hornets have started to do so as well. Sam Perley of NBA.com released a feature-length story on the newly acquired combo guard on Sunday, and everything in the article pointed to both Sexton and the team being very excited and very optimistic about the move and the new acquisition. One of the most interesting things I took away from Perley's article was Sexton quickly mentioning his initial phone conversations with Jeff Peterson and Charles Lee, and calling this a real family environment, and stating that everyone wants to be here, and that has been clear very early on in his getting to Charlotte process. I think that's so important because it sounds very similar to what the rookies said in their first press conference. Now, if you remember, I hit on some of their comments as how that quickly they emphasized their conversations with Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson, and the buzzwords that were said like competitiveness and intensity, and they even made mention of how it felt comfortable and like a family getting here. Everyone wants to be here. We saw the whole team surrounding them when they signed their deals and celebrating with them. And so that just puts more of an emphasis on the seriousness of Lee and Peterson to actually change things the culture-wise here in Charlotte, and how much they are really trying to do that, and not just saying they're going to do that, but proving it as well. Sexton was also quoted in the article saying that whatever the team needs from me, I'm just going to go out there and be a competitor. Also, no matter if I'm on ball or off ball, I can have an impact with whatever when I'm on the court. Now, quotes like that make it very easy to see why Sexton was brought in the first place, and just as easy to understand why it seems like the front office really wants to keep him around, like they're latching on to Sexton and someone they think can be a part of the future here in Charlotte. Again, words like competitor and willingness to his Sexton's willingness to compete have to make everyone here in Charlotte excited about the prospect of him being on this roster for some time to come, despite rumors that he may be a movable piece. Now, the last piece of news from this weekend, well, kind of, because it was announced on July the 3rd, but the last interesting little tidbit is that the Hornets will be playing host to the NBA champs, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, it will be a preseason game. It'll be taking place on October the 5th in Charleston, and this will, of course, be a part of the Hornets hosting their summer training camp at the Citadel during this time period. Now, I can't confirm this for sure, of course, but I would imagine with it being so close to the regular season start, that league MVP Shea Gilgeous-Alexander will be playing in this game as one of his final tune-up opportunities for the regular season. This, of course, will be good for the young Hornets core that'll have an entire summer under their belt up to that point, a full off-season workout to get a small gauge of where they stand against the best of the best heading into the season, kind of understand where they match up against some obvious top tier talent in this league as the former or the defending champions will be playing in Charleston. Now, before we get into any training camps or any preseason action, we have got to go through the Summer League. As you all know, you've been watching along. I've said many, many times I'm very excited for Game 1 of the Summer League to tip off on July 11th, as well as the rest of the Summer League as a whole. There's a lot of optimism with this young team, and that can only be fueled in Vegas if the performances are what we think they're going to be, if this Hornets team can show some promise out in the desert. Now, I've given you the roster and a little preview of Tajon Salon, who was our first player picked and who I think has got the most eyes or most to prove coming into the Summer League. And as I mentioned, we'll continue that today with KJ Simpson to wrap up this episode. But before we get there, I wanted to do something we haven't done yet. I know it's been out for a while, but we haven't mentioned it specifically on this show, and go over the complete Summer League schedule. Like I say, it's been out for a little while, and I'm sure most, if not all of you watching, have already seen it and looked over it yourself. But it'll be a nice refresher after a busy weekend, and with it only being 4 days away from Game 1, it'll be nice to refresh our memories a little bit in terms of what that schedule looks like. So we'll start right now. We'll go right into that. Friday, July the 11th at 7 p.m., the Hornets will play the Utah Jazz. On Saturday, July the 12th at 6:30, the Hornets will play against the Philadelphia 76ers Summer League team. Take a couple days off and return on Monday the 14th against the Mavericks. And then the last guaranteed game on the schedule is Thursday, July the 17th at 7 p.m., facing off against the San Antonio Spurs. Now, if this were the regular season, the opening game on July the 11th would be fun for reasons I don't even have to mention. Although we will see Jusuf Nurkic as he's listed on the Summer League roster for the Jazz. But alas, Colin Sexton won't be there, so the reasons do need mentioning. I'm excited for this one because we'll get to see the likes of the aforementioned KJ Simpson, who we'll dive into here in just a few minutes, and two-way player Damon Bach go up against the March Madness phenom of Walter Clayton Jr. And now it'll be a good test for Simpson, one I think he should pass, where he can use his experience in the G League and the NBA last year to give himself a leg up on the phenom that was Walter Clayton Jr. The big man Tajon Salon will also get an early test as he'll face off with John Collins, another experienced big in the league, as well as the aforementioned Nurkic. So it'll be thrown right into the fire for Salon, who we all know has a lot of pressure on him. This first game on July the 11th, will be a really good judging point to kind of get a watermark on where he stands early in the summer as the Summer League continues to progress. The new guy, Ryan Kalkbrenner, should also get an early opportunity to show what he can do against NBA talent, as he'll be on the roster as a center as well in Vegas. The second game against the 76ers doesn't quite pack the same punch that the Utah game does, but it will allow for more time and work for the big men, Salon and Kalkbrenner, as they'll face off against another college sensation in Johanny Broom. It will also give us a chance to see a very, I don't want to say highly touted because it is Summer League, but something that's going to be very interesting and a very exciting matchup to watch. If you're watching Summer League, and if you're watching this video, you're probably watching Summer League. That's going to be Con Knippel and VJ Edgecombe are going to face off for the first time, as Edgecombe will be out in Vegas with the 76ers. That'll give us a chance to see what Knippel can do against someone who is thought of as the more athletic style of NBA player versus Con, where he's coming in more of a shooter, playmaker, smart passer type of guy. Edgecombe, as we know, has the explosive ability of something in an Oppenheimer movie. Game 3 is on Monday the 14th, as we mentioned, against Dallas, and we know Con versus Cooper is going to be a lot of fun. That will be very highly talked about throughout the weekend leading up to that. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the young players on the Hornets roster will react to being on the floor with the likes of a prospect like Cooper Flagg, and how they react to his presence as well as his game while they're out there as well. So that'll be a good measuring stick. How can the rest of the young guys react to a big media guy, a big media circus, as well as play basketball at the same time? Now, as we mentioned, the final guaranteed game of this summer is July 17th versus the Spurs, where the Hornets will again face off with two more lottery picks in Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant. It'll be all eyes on whoever draws the assignment of Harper in this one, as that will be a preview of what's to come in the regular season, who's going to be the guy guarding the best guard on the other team, the big name, the highlight player, which Dylan Harper will be on the Summer League roster for the Spurs. I'm hopeful that despite it just being Summer League, the competitive culture that the Hornets are trying to build, and Peterson and Charles Lee keep hammering home to us in press conferences and on social media, that kicks in early and this team can make a run out in Vegas and it not just be the 4 guaranteed games that we know they have. If so, that could be a huge sign towards things to come in the regular season and the attitude which the rest of the team is going to take come the start of the regular season. And it just, again, further emphasizes that the culture change is happening here in Charlotte. Now, if the Hornets are to make some noise in Vegas, it will almost certainly have to be in part due to the play of KJ Simpson. A returner to this Hornets roster, Simpson is second up on our list of players with the most riding on this Summer League stretch. The 6', 185-pounder out of Colorado was a second-round pick in the 24 draft, and he played in 36 games for the Hornets last season, starting 15 of those when LaMelo went out with injury. He also played in 15 G League games for the Greensboro Swarm last season. Obviously, his numbers were a little better in Greensboro, where he averaged almost 21 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, and another 4.5 assists per game. But that doesn't mean his numbers in the NBA were bad. Now, they were more than enough to make it known that he can belong in this league. That question was answered during his rookie season. He averaged 7.8 points per game, 3 rebounds a game, and 3.1 assists per game in the 23.4 minutes he averaged while playing in a Charlotte Hornets uniform. Now, the downfall or the downside there, Simpson only shot 34% from the floor, including 25% from three. And as a guard in the NBA, neither of those numbers are really up to snuff there with where the league has come in 2025. But I don't see how those numbers don't increase as from Simpson after a full season ahead of him and another off season to continue to develop his game. Now, Simpson is a more than fine passer, and if he can prove in this summer league that he can be a legit ball handler in the NBA, along with upping his 3-point and field goal percentage, it could go a long way towards him securing a roster spot with the Hornets. Now, we know that's going to be easier said than done, as the list of guards on this team looks like a shopping list at a grocery store, but he will at least make himself known if he is able to have a good summer. And if it just so happens that he is not in line for a roster spot, he'll have at least increased his value in the trade market if the Hornets do decide to move on from KJ. After being thrown into the fire quickly last year when LaMelo went down, Simpson will have to channel that experience and have himself quite a showing during this summer league if he wants to make a name for himself and again earn a spot on this Hornets roster. Of course, we will all be watching to see how Simpson, as well as the rest of the Hornets team, performs out in Vegas this summer, this coming week. We'll be here with you on Hornets Daily as the summer league kicks off and even the rest of the way through, but we'll be bringing you updates and information on all of the action. And well, folks, that is going to do it for another episode of Hornets Daily here. I'm Vance Ballard, and as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, leave a comment on anything you think about in today, thought about in today's video, or anything you may want to talk about going forward. Again, we'll start getting into those comments later on this week and early into next week. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Hornets Daily.